Welcome back to The Rustic Wife. I'm Alana. Today we are planting our Gladiolus corms out in the garden. And last year I did a video on how to harvest those and how to dry, cure, and store the corms if you are in an area that they need to be dug up. Some growing zones are warm enough that you can keep them in the ground and they'll come up every year, but where I live in Ontario, we need to dig them up. Or some people can just treat them as an annual and just buy corms every year, but I dig mine up and I save them. So that video that I did, I actually never published it. I thought it would be better to keep it and then I can show you how we plant them and then do the whole process from start to finish. So I'm going to tack this on to the front of that video I did last year, and I think that would be nicer to see the whole process. So I'm going to show you, turn you around and show you these corms that I saved last year. Now, later on in the video, I'm going to show you, as I'd mentioned, how I cured these. And I just store mine in brown paper bags down in the basement. You need to store them in a cool, dark place. So here are the ones that I stored last year. You can see this one's already starting to sprout, and you can tell that's a good one. It's got a sprout. There are a few that I saved last year that just don't look viable, so we'll discard those. But anyway, I'm going to take these outside and bring you along as we plant them. Gladiolus flowers are one of my favorites. They remind me of my grandma. She always used to grow them and put them in her vegetable garden, and I think years ago she used to work at a gladiolus farm. When my grandpa passed away, she worked there to make ends meet, so they always remind me of her. I like to put mine in my garden, again, just like my grandma did, and we put ours in rows and we put drip tape alongside them. Well, we did that last year because that was the first year we had our drip irrigation, and it worked wonderfully because gladiolus, they do like a constant source of water, and then they'll turn out beautiful for you. We're going to start by making a trench here. You can see the little nozzle right there for a drip irrigation. We're just going to put a row in right beside where the drip tape is going to go. We're kind of behind. We haven't put all of our garden in yet, and we have not put the drip tape, all of the drip tapes down. So we'll plant these first and then we'll just put the drip tape in. So you want to dig your trench or your holes, however you're planting your corms. You want to dig that about 4 inches deep, and you can plant anywhere between, well, some people do 3 inches apart, anywhere between 3 and 8 inches apart. We're going to do ours probably about 4 inches apart. So this is a corm, and you want to do, you can see at the bottom there where the old one was that I pulled off, and you want to plant it sprout side up. So I've just dumped out some of the bags, and you can see will have to be discarded. That did not do well. That one's okay. It looks kind of weird, but you can see right there it's got a little sprout coming, so I'm going to plant that one. You can see that one sprouted. This one looks a little rotten, so you just go through them and pick out the ones you don't think will be viable and save the ones that you think will. So there's our trench. It's about 4 inches deep, and we'll put our corms about 4 inches apart. So you can plant these after your last frost, or in our case, it's June 14th, and we're just planting them now. You can also succession plant them as well, so you have blooms all season long, but just keep in mind that they're about 90 days until they bloom, so you want to just know when your first frost is and count back 90 days. There we are. We had enough for one row. At the end, we planted them a little thicker because there were some smaller ones, so we just kind of crowded those in. Once your gladiolus has reached maturity and the flowers start to bloom, the spike can kind of get a little bit top heavy when all the florets have bloomed up the stem. And sometimes you may need to stake it. So I've put bamboo canes before, but since I put them in rows, I've actually just kind of run string down the side of it on both sides to kind of keep them upright. So you don't want them flopping all over the place. Or you can cut them for a bouquet or cut flowers before they all, oh my dogs, before they all bloom, the little florets bloom up the spike and get too top heavy. It's about 20 after 6 and it's getting dark so quick. Well, it's still light, but the sun's going down very quickly. I just got home from work and I want to dig out my Gladiolus corms. It has been raining and yesterday and today was quite dry, and it's supposed to be dry tomorrow, but it's supposed to rain again. So I'm gonna try to get these suckers out, and I like to dry them on the grass for a day, and then I will bring them inside to dry some more. You can see the sun's getting lower and it is going to be dark soon. It's died off the leaves and the stems. Some of them are green, but that's okay. I want to get them out and get them dried out for the next couple of days. I want to dig a little bit further away from the base here because you don't want to damage any corm. Some of them are quite big, so you don't want to damage any of those. You can see how large this one is, so if I dug close to the base of the stem here, I could run the risk of damaging the corm. Be nice to your baby. You also don't want to just pull it up from the stem, and you don't want to peel this is the old corm that it grew from. You don't want to peel that off until they're dried, and then you can peel it off. See the stem, I just pulled the stem out of the corm. I just did what I told you not to do. So don't do that. So this is a nice big one. The old corm that I planted was very small. You can see it there, it's covered in dirt, and this all grew from that original one. So I'm gonna collect these all now, and instead of putting them on the grass, I'm gonna put them up on top of our pheasant pen. It'll be a lot drier, and the dogs will not have the notion to pee on them up there. So I will gather these up and put them up there. There's the first row, and so next I'll just dig out the second row and put them on the other side there. It's October 19th, and usually I have these glads pulled out of the garden by now because we've had frost by this point, but we haven't had any frost yet. So I've been able to keep them in the garden a little bit longer, but I don't want to test my luck here, so I'm pulling them out now. Okay, you can see I've got my Gladiolus corms. I just brought those in on a blanket. And I am just going to spread them out on these pallets and just these little plastic trays, just so that they're up off the ground and air can circulate through them. And then I will let them dry. Hey guys, I'm back down my basement, and it's been 2 weeks since I dried out my Gladiolus corms on pallets down the basement here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the brand new corm from the old one that I planted originally. So I just grabbed some brown paper lunch bags from the dollar store. There was 30 bags. I think it was about $2. And you can also use these onion bags here. I just saved a few of these so you could see what I meant, and you can store them in there. As long as they're kept dry, you're good. You don't want them to rot. All right, so what you want to do is this foliage, I've kept the stem on, and this foliage, it'll just come off because it's so dry. So then this kind of wrinkled flat piece, that's actually the old corm that you originally planted. And this is the new one that's grown off of the old one. So you can actually just take that, you can just pull the old kind of shriveled rotten corm off, and then you have this new corm right here. Just make sure it's dry and it's not, doesn't have any rot spots on it, and then I will store it in a brown paper bag. I actually don't put any medium in there, I just store them just like this in a brown paper bag. Or I just store them down our basement here, and if you know the variety and the color of your Glad, then you can write it on the bag, but I just have them all growing in a big bunch of multicolored rows. So I never really know what color or what variety I have, but it's always a surprise every year. So you can see this one right here. There is one old corm and two of them have grown from it. I've had that happen several times. So it's always a nice surprise. And you'll notice these little round, you can see them here, the little balls here. So you can actually plant these. These are called cormels, but they won't produce a flower the first year. I believe they produce a flower the following year. I've never planted these before, so I don't know if what they look like after the first year. I don't know if they have to be dug up, but I do know these are called cormels, and you can plant them, but apparently it takes a couple of years to produce a flower. So I just discard these and put them in the compost. And again, I just pull the old corm off. You can see I've got two new ones. And I'm just going to take the foliage off. Now don't remove these husks here. You want to keep these husks on and just make sure it's not rotten anywhere. It's nice and dry, which that is. And that can go in my paper bag. Again, same with this one. I just pull that stem off. Yeah, it's nice and dry in there. You can see, looks like there. And again, keep the husks on. So that one's nice and firm, no rot spots. So that one can go in the bag too. I'm located in Ontario, Canada, and our growing zone is 5B. So that means our winters are too cold for the corms to last in the ground. So we have to dig ours up each year. If you are in growing zone 8 and warmer, you can actually leave your corms in the ground. So I have a little corm here. You can see that it's been cut in half. I may have nicked that with the shovel when I was digging them up. So even though it's dried over, I'm not going to put this in the bag with the other corms. If it happens to rot, I don't want to run the risk of rotting the other 7 that I have in the bag. So I'll just discard this and put it into the compost pile. Okay, I've got my Gladiolus corms. They're all done, and I'm just going to put them into the paper bags. So I have the bags sitting on the floor on some burlap. That's usually where I store them, right by my canned goods there. It's nice and cool. They're dark in the paper bags and they stay dry as well. And this is how I've stored them for years. I've also been saving these corms here for about, I don't know, maybe about 5 years now. And yeah, so I just keep digging them up and doing this process. I hope that video was helpful if you're planning on digging up your Gladiolus corms and saving them for the next year. As long as you're in zones 7 and colder, you need to dig those corms up. If not, like I mentioned before, in growing zones 8 and warmer, you can keep those in the ground. And I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks a lot for coming along with me, and I'll see you again next time.